Maybe I have to move. Good morning. We'll get started. I'm going to find the proper place to stand. If I need to stand like this, I'll do that. All right. Welcome to the June meeting of the Special Education Advisory Council. We'll call to order. It is 9:01, and we'll start with roll call. And I'm going to have to pass the mic.
Spot is up here.
I'm going to see if I can find that technology.
Okay, is this gonna be better? There, that's good. A little better. Okay, Autumn Bilt. Present. Sydney Dringman. Jennifer Flores. Bradley Miller. Jennifer King. Here. Dr. Sean Smith.
Here.
Kylie Stewart. Kate Stewart. Okay. You like to go by? Oh, no, there's a Kylie Stewart.
Oh.
Yeah, sorry, we got two. Okay. Dr. Jessica Lopez. Lindsay Graff. Present. Dr. Marvin Miller.
I'm not on it anymore.
I know, but you're,
Oh,
I
I'm
wrote it
here.
down because you're here.
I'm here.
Okay. Rebecca Schultz.
Present.
Rebecca Helgett.
I'm not gonna be here.
Okay. Beth Sillinger.
Present.
Roxanne Sillinger. Not here. Kate Stewart. Jason Meyer. Daniel Simon. Dr. Brooke Moore.
Here.
Dr. Lena Kistner.
Here.
Charity Porter. Jerry Brooks. Yeah. Mike Burgess. Ashley Enns.
Here.
Leslie Gerard.
Here.
Melanie Haas. Joan Macy. Anna Bradley.
Here.
John Harding.
Present.
And I know Steve and Trish Batman are not here. Myself, I am here. Stacy Clark's not here. Pat Bone.
Here.
Brian Dempsey.
Here.
Bert Moore.
Present.
Teresa Cotton.
Present.
Carrie Rogers is not here. Dean is not here. Carrie Haig.
Here.
Lisa Carney is not here. And Mason Bosberg. Okay, is there anybody I didn't? Wayne Ball? Is there anyone else I did not get? Okay.
They've got a gentleman that will be here in a few minutes.
Wonderful. So, because we don't have name cards this morning and we have some new people, I thought it would be nice to swoop around the room and introduce ourselves. And so you will say your name and the role you represent. I will begin. I am Dr. Brooke Moore, and I represent an Institute of Higher Education. And I'm also the chair this year. I'm going to just go around the room, around the table, and swing that way so I'll get to see all of you personally. So here we go. Pat, we'll start with you.
Pat Bone, KSDE. Ashley Enns, KC ex officio.
Rebecca Schultz, an adult with a disability and chair-elect.
Autumn Bilt, adult with a disability.
Beth Sillinger. Parent of a child with a disability.
Sorry.
Why don't we just stand up
Lindsay Graff.
and use our outside voice and shut that thing
I'm just gonna yes. Teacher voices, please. Teacher voices, please.
Lena Kistner, past chair. I am representing special education administrators and also parenthood of a child with a disability.
Kate Stewart, I'm representing virtual.
Jennifer King, I'm representing gifted students, and I'm also a parent of a child with Sean Smith, representing parent, but also the University of Kansas.
Wade Ball, Senior Technical Assistance Coordinator from Kansas, and I've been here since 1999.
First?
Bert Moore, currently Director of Special Education for KSDE and CX Secretary.
There's KSDE.
John Harding, School for the Blind.
Marvin Miller, 12 years on SEAC, first meeting not on SEAC. When I was on, I represented teacher of special education and parent, now 24-year-old with Down syndrome.
I'm Joan Macy, I'm with the School for the Deaf.
Mason Vosberg, KSDE.
Carrie Hay, I'm an Assistant Director on Special Education at KSD.
Lisa Sharp, I'm a guest for Families Together and a parent of a child with disability.
Leslie Gerard, Families Together, ex officio member. Whitney Dockman.
Anna Moon Bradley, I'm with Kansas NEA.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Brian Dempsey. I'm with KSDE.
I'm Joyce Broyles, and I'm also with KSDE.
Well, that was sort of painful, but thank you all. Obviously, I'm going to grab my agenda to move to the front. Okay. Is that? All right, we are ready for some approvals. So we've got the agenda to vote on. Has everyone had a chance to see it? Oh, sorry, introduction.
Stacy Clark, KSDE.
Okay, so the agenda. Everybody has a chance to look at that. I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
Lindsay Graff, I move to approve the agenda as presented.
Lindsay Graff has made a motion. We have a second.
Second.
Autumn Billups has seconded. Do we have any discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Do we have a quorum, by the way?
No, and what we'll do is we'll say a motion, no quorum. That way it goes in the minute showing that the 9 of you made the decision without having official quorum.
Do we how many members do we have online? Because if we have 2, we have a quorum.
I'm trying to see who's online. I can't tell. One person, AH, I'm not sure.
Well,
Is anyone online that's a member of the council?
Jerry Brooks.
I'm not sure what she looks like, so. Jerry, are you online?
She
Yes.
is. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so then she.
And we've got 2 interpreters.
Well,
and Melanie Moss.
Can Jerry vote yet? Since they
Yes.
have- Okay,
Yeah, we'll make her official here in a little bit.
okay.
But we still don't have a quorum.
We need 1 more, correct?
We need 11.
Okay,
So
so
we recorded as motion passed, no quorum.
no quorum. Okay. Okay, so moving to the minutes. Hopefully you've had an opportunity to review the minutes from our last meeting. Is there any discussion or items that need to be revised?
There are some typos in the minutes that I will get corrected, but other than that.
Joyce has indicated there are a few typos that she will correct. So I will entertain a motion to pass the minutes from our last meeting.
Lena Kisner, so moved.
Lena Kistner has moved.
Jennifer King, second.
Jennifer King has seconded. Is there any other discussion on the minutes? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? I think I forgot to do that in the last one. This is my first time. Give me some grace. All right, moving on. We're open to public comments. Pat or Joyce, do we have anyone online for public comments? No. Okay, I have a Post-it note. I'm sorry, I have to go fetch. This is the no pass zone. We have 3 new members that we would like to welcome. I believe Beth Zillinger is here, correct? Hi, Beth. Thank you for joining us. Beth is going to be representing the Related Services, joining us for her first, is this your first turn on? So, welcome. We're very glad to have you. Kylie Stewart. Is Kylie with us today? Okay. Kylie will be joining us as a parent of a child with a disability. And then Dr. Brooks, Dr. Jerry Brooks is online today, and she is representing an institute of a higher education institute. So we are welcoming our 3 new members for SEAC. We're glad to have you. Thank you, thank you. And with that, I'm going to turn this over to Wayne, who's going to begin our orientation. Thank you very much, Wayne.
Well, thank you.
Stand zone.
Can you all hear me okay? That's usually not a problem with me. As I said in the introductions, I've been coming to the orientations and working with the SEAC group in Kansas since 1999. And I thought today I would start with a little bit of history about kind of how you got here and what the law says, and just bring everybody up to date, a good refresher for some of you who've been around for a long time, and maybe had some new information for some that haven't. So just thinking about the background idea, it's statute. Appointed, it was put in by Congress, and it's been an interesting journey. It actually started back in 1974 when a group of 75 people from across the country came together to talk about a whole group of children that weren't attending school. I happened to be on that committee. We met for 13 days in San Diego and tried to determine, who aren't we meeting the needs of? And that was really an interesting meeting. I was high school principal at the time. But out of that came what we know as the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act idea. And it was a bipartisan act. The country really came together to support educating all children, giving everyone an opportunity and a right to attend our public school system.
Before he leaves, could you walk where Brooke is seated, Wayne? I'm sorry. We need to see if it's still going to screen the microphone.
Okay. No problem. I'd like to relinquish the microphone.
Let's give this a try. I think you got it. Yay!
Fantastic.
Sorry to interrupt. Just didn't want to leave and not have a break.
Thank you. But there's different parts of IDEA that's in the statute, and Part B is the school-age children. Part C is our infants and toddlers, and so we function together but separately. So Bert and his team work with the Part B program and funds, and we have the Part C program through the Health and Human Services across the street up in Topeka, and they worked with the Bert through 3-3 program. Next. I think what was really interesting when this bill was first introduced, the term FAPE came out, free appropriate public education for all children. And that was really the goal of what we wanted to come up with. And I think that along with your help and people from all across the country, they've developed a very, very special program for a very special group of children. For a child to meet the eligibility criteria, they have, depending on the category and their disability area, they have to meet certain requirements, and we as the state and you as parents and people within the school districts have to determine that we are meeting the needs of those children and that they're getting a free appropriate public education. Covered that with you, but you can see, the different parts of Part B is national activities that have to say the state advisory panels were very intentional when we met to develop this original law, because everyone said parents need to be involved. Parents with students with disabilities need to be involved. We need to listen to them and we need to get their inputs. I just want to tell you, if someone hasn't told you, you're a very special group of people. Very special. And I can say, and I know speaking for Bert, you've been invaluable to him over the past several years in giving advice and determining the direction in Kansas. That's so important. So let's learn about Kansas SEAC. I put a couple of links in here that you can go in. Usually you can go to the OSEP, Office of Special Ed Programs website, which currently is down. There's a lot of changes going on in Washington, but that's why I thought I'd give you just a little history and background here. But in this statute, you're looking at the advisory panel, specifically 300-167. Just Google IDEA regulations. You can go in and read about your roles, responsibilities, and what you need to be doing. Sometimes it's called the State Advisory Panel, sometimes the State Advisory Council. It's all kind of goes to the same place. But it was really important within this legislation that the state must establish and maintain the State Advisory Panel, and it must do an annual orientation to keep everybody up to date on what's going on. And I think that's been invaluable to support this program. So the membership is very structured and detailed, and it was by design that we wanted to be sure that we were covering everybody, including people with disabilities and parents and advocacy groups and anyone that deals with the education of our children. So in Kansas, note that they include giftedness, and the membership reflects that also. And so while that's kind of a separate group and they don't get the special ed funding, it's an important part of our programs and meeting the needs of those children as well. So this is the group that you're representative, the SEAC membership. Each of you are appointed by design of your particular expertise and who you represent. Just keep in mind, as you go throughout the meetings throughout the year, you're representing groups across the state. And if you have an opportunity to get input from them to sometimes reflect their feelings that might be a little different than yours, that's really your role. But it's important to bring everybody to the table so that everybody have an equal voice. The ex-official members, I really like the agenda that you actually list these within your agenda. Kansas goes much beyond what other states do as far as who they invite to be ex-official members. I think it's that spirit of cooperation across the state from all groups, and all voices are important. So I think Kansas has done an outstanding job of doing that. Special rule, 51%. So we have the majority of the members panel must be individuals with disabilities and parents or guardians of children with disabilities. Who knows our children better? Who knows the needs better? So we're very intentional about this part of the law. As I said, you're representing a group, and try to bring to the table what the groups across the state feel about a particular issue. And I think that's, again, so important, and what makes this work so well is because we listen to all the voices and we have an opportunity to represent different groups. Yes. You like to have guests come to your house, right? We like to have guests come to our meetings. But if we do, we want to be sure that we have a place for them and that while they're not official members of the council, we used to have a separate seating area that if we have guests, that we can identify where those people are in the audience. But we welcome that. And we started with public comment. We didn't have any this morning. Sometimes we do. But it's an opportunity for people across the state. You know, they can't come to Wichita. They can call in and say, hey, you know, what's going on here? What can we do? That's, again, an important part of the process, yes. So your role, primary role, is advisory. And it's advisory to the special education programs office, the state director, special education, commissioner, the Board of Education. Your advice is very important, and as you know, the ones that have been with this group for a while over the past, Bert brings major decisions to this group and says, what do you think? He brings the state performance plan, an annual performance report for you every year and say, here's what we're reporting, here's what's going on in our state. Because it's that spirit of everybody working together that's so important. So again, advisory, and you can read these points, but you know, to give advice, to inform the council, those are all very important parts of our communication process, and we rely on this council to do that very well. And last, to guide. Guide to make children in Kansas have an opportunity for a free appropriate public education in all of our schools and all of our locations. Just think about the process for a second. You know, a priority comes up. We look at your experience, your perspectives, and stakeholder input. We have member discussions that you have at these meetings and sometimes virtual meetings. Point out resources and things that are available to you, but ultimately is to have an objective advice that you can pass on to the BIRD and the state board. And hopefully the outcome is that we have improved results for all children. Advocacy. There is a place. It's very important, and we welcome and invite the advocacy groups to come to the meetings and to give input. And BIRD welcomes the information that they share and the request of things that our advocates have. So it's an important part. But again, it's all so we can have meaningful advice to help promote youth and disabilities. Okay. Special interest groups, and you can see here on our, in Kansas, we invite a lot of different groups beyond these three that was initially mentioned. Next. Advisory Council procedures. We use Robert's Rules of Order as a guide, and open meeting laws within the state. Everything that you do is open to the public. We don't have secret meetings. We share our thoughts freely and openly, with everybody. And so it's really interesting in the federal law as well. You know, people have been around special education for a while. We can't use federal funds to buy food. Or can we? In the statute, in the federal law, they encourage the state to provide refreshments and some nourishments for you as you attend the meetings, because we know parents, children with disability, parents of children with disabilities, it takes a lot out of your schedule to come to these meetings and contribute. And so we want to be sure that we're giving you some good nourishment along the way. And I think you'll find a great lunch today. I just come back every year for the lunches. They're fantastic. So just a few advice recommendations for you. A close working relationship with Bert and his staff, the state staff, as well as the local school boards, administrators. So important that you keep communications open. And as required in the law, that you have a membership orientation every year, just to kind of bring everybody together and get you on the same page. Understanding your functions, understanding the advisory, and to, again, represent the field and make those proper recommendations. Next. Priorities determined by data from the state performance plan, the annual performance report. Hopefully everyone's familiar with those. If not, we'll give you some more information on them. But this is kind of what guides the special education process within Kansas and the states across the country. So we want to know how the state's performing. We want to know what's happening on an annual basis. And every year, as I said, Bert brings that back to the council and shares what's going on in Kansas and gets your advice on what we need to do. For each of the state performance activities, the state has to have goals, that have measurements, and set targets. You're part of that process. We want to be sure that it's realistic and that it works for everyone. So supporting all of these efforts, supporting your bylaws and the advisory council just makes it flow that much better. So think of the big picture. The Office of Special Education and Rehabilitative Services, those are, and I'll just preface this by saying right now, we know there's potential changes going on in Washington with the structure and the Department of Ed. But what's nice, because IDEA is in statute, those activities are going to continue on until Congress changes it. So it's really, there's some protections built into it, but you can see where the Office of Special Ed Programs under OSERS, State Education Agency, the Advisory Panel, where it's in Part B, Part C, and I really like this, keep the main thing the main thing. It's all about our kids. It's so important. Next. So we call this the puzzle, general supervision puzzle, the oversight. This is kind of Bert's Bible of all the things that he's supposed to ensure go on and happen from the state. And I want to tell you, this was developed in Kansas, at a national meeting from the Office of Special Ed Programs. We met 3 days before Christmas and came up with what we thought were the key parts of the puzzle that we had the state has to ensure happens. That was also the weekend that I live in Colorado. We had 3 foot of snow and every exit in the state was closed. I spent New Year's Eve in Kansas, but it was not New Year's, but Christmas Eve. And this is really important. As you think about, look at each of those areas. Bert, you got a big job, a lot of responsibility, but it's so much easier when you've got the advice of all the people sitting in this room. Next. So the State Performance Plan, SPP, these are the indicators that these were enacted in the last reauthorization of IDEA, which was 2004, and revised again a little bit in 2006. When we first started IDEA and the statute went into effect, Congress tried to, at least every 5 years, meet and update the rules, the regulations. IDEA has not been reauthorized since 2004, a little over 20 years. That's troubling to some people, it's interesting to others, but the fact that it's in statute does keep the requirements and the regulations in place and the funding source in the federal government. So look at these different areas that the state has to evaluate and look at. They've changed this a couple times, and it's changed a little bit again for next year. But these are the key activities that really affect the education of our children. And these are ones that you'll provide input and advice as council members. Questions? Well, I probably didn't have the answers, so it's okay, but you know. No, just, again, I want to point out the importance of this council, of your role, and of meeting the needs of children with disabilities. We don't know in the future exactly where it may change, but it can't change until Congress changes. So what's the statute? That's very important. You know, there is talk of moving from the Office of Special Ed Programs to Health and Human Services Division in Washington. Whether that happens or not, the statute is still in effect. So your roles are going to continue on. You're going to continue to advise the state on unmet needs for children with disabilities across the state of Kansas. Comments? Question, Bert?
One question I have for you, Wayne, is could you talk a little bit about what's going to happen with 2026 when we have a new 5-year plan that we have to develop and that we'll have CAC input on that runs through 2031?
So OSEP did set up, when they put the guidelines in place, the state performance plan, was that at least every 5 years they would take a look at the requirements, the state performance plan, the indicators, and revise them as necessary. That process is going on right now. They are changing the way we report on a couple of the indicators. What happens with that, anytime we make a change in those regulations and requirements, it needs to come back to this group, and we're going to bring that in and say, you know, here's what's happening, what do you think? What should we do in Kansas? And so when Bert submits his reports to the federal government, it'll represent your thoughts and feelings, and I think that's really important, particularly in the goal setting. Where do we want to be 5 years from today? How do we want to progress? Do we want to increase a little bit each year? Is there areas we're going to increase a lot more in? And again, that's all based on what's going on in the state. So it's going to be an interesting process to see what changes they actually make, Bert, and what you can bring back to this group to get their advice on what we need to do. But just know that you're one of the 50 states that are going to be sending reports and evaluations in. And I know that Kansas, I've worked, I used to do the OSEP trainings for the Parent Advisory Council and work with every state. Kansas is one of the strongest states in the country as far as using the advisory panel and using your advice and involving you in the way the law was designed and what was intended. So your voice will certainly be heard. Good question, Bert. Thank you. Okay, I don't want to take too much of your time, but hopefully everyone kind of has a little feeling now of a little more of your responsibilities and your role, and with the leadership standing beside me, we're ready to go.
No further questions, nothing online? Thank you so much, Wayne. I appreciate it every year. In lieu of the time, I'm wondering, Brian, would you be ready to move forward with the agenda just to kind of carry forward? All right. Introduce Brian Dempsey to talk about OSEP.
Good morning, everybody. I think we'll leave this slide up here because we all have a lot of questions. I know I'm on the agenda for OSEP. I think it's a little early, so I thought I would update you. A real deeper dive into what we presented at OSEP will come to you in September, so if it's okay with the chair, we can continue this to September and I'll provide more information then. So as a reminder, OSEP came and did an on-site visit, I don't know when, sometime in the past. They issued some findings, although we don't have those in written form to us yet, but we've been operating under the assumption that those are the final findings. We uploaded our proposed policy changes and everything last October. We've been implementing all of our changes, and we are going to submit all of our evidence by July 10th. So we're in the stage now of gathering all of that and getting in that form, and then I'll upload it probably around that time. And then OSEP will review that, make sure it's okay, or if they want any tweaks. I don't anticipate at this time asking for an extension. That's certainly a possibility. The biggest lift has been our general supervision model that Melissa's talked to you about at the last meeting and what that looks like. And she's across the hall with our first cohort going through what the next year for them will look like. So that involved a lot of changes from doing things at a district level to the LEA level and what that has impacted. And then we took a lot of field input we've received over the last couple of years, wove it all together, and that's the new general supervision model. A lot of the dispute resolution was policy changes, some language in the reports and how we're doing corrective action. So those are pretty easy to gather. We'll just pull up some reports and submit those. We redact those and post them online, so we use those, and then we'll send up our policy. So they've got the language, they just want the complete policy on that. Our data changes are woven in through general supervision, and those are okay, and our fiscal changes, we already have that evidence. So that's, in short, where we're at with DMS. Are there any questions on that? Okay. And we touch base with OSEP monthly with our state lead and his supervisor. There have been no red flags through this entire process. We've had open conversations about where we're at in the process. They've had no questions or concerns at this point. The other thing with OSEP, I'm going to invite Dean up, if it's okay with the chair, to provide a little bit of an update on what came out this week on the news with OSERS and the Federal Department of Education. You're okay with that? All right.
Thank you, Brian. Good morning, everyone. I think I know everyone here, but just in case there's anyone I don't, Dean Zeitz, I'm one of the other assistant directors on the Special Ed Title Services team. We don't have a lot of new information necessarily to share with you, but we did want to share what we do know, and maybe flag where there's places where we and everyone else are waiting for more information. So if you aren't already aware, and this is sort of a unique group where I would be willing to bet that most, if not all of you, already have some understanding of what I'm about to talk about. The U.S. Department of Education last week sent out released a public notice basically announcing that they were in fact moving forward with moving parts of OSERS, specifically the formula grants IDA Part B, to the Health and Human Services Agency. Office of Civil Rights, they said it was going to go over to Department of Labor. So what does that mean? What's that timeline, and what is or isn't actually happening? So, what they announced last week is very, very similar to something they've already done with the Office of Elementary and Secondary Education, ESEA. all the way back, it feels like forever ago, but all the way back in November of 25 last year. In November of 25, they signed an interagency agreement between the Office of Elementary and Secondary Education and Department of Labor. And it's been on paper. They have had communications at a high level between Department of Labor and the U.S. Department of Education's Office of Elementary and Secondary Education. But materially, for those of us in the field, at the state level, in districts, in buildings, at this point, there's been very little. You would, if you hadn't read that, you wouldn't be aware of it, because the grants have continued to flow from Department of Education through our existing systems and out to the districts. Our contacts at the Office of Elementary and Secondary Education have remained the same. Their emails are the same. The agency as a whole, U.S. Department as a whole, is down on staff. Like it is different at Department of Ed than it was last year, and it's very different than it was a couple of years ago, or in decades. But as a very practical matter, and from the perspective of the folks who probably most directly deal with the U.S. Department of Ed on a more regular basis than certainly our districts, because there's kind of a buffer there, right? At a material level, while they're down on staff, the staff that are there, and they are still being very responsive, and they are still very engaged in the work. I shared the kind of update and context with the Office of Elementary and Secondary Education because, again, that was back in November, and they said, we are plowing ahead with moving this all forward to Department of Labor. Your grants are going to be coming out from Department of Labor. We're going to be using our new PMS system. That's what they call their grant system, is PMS, payment management system or something. But all this is going to happen, and it is now June, almost July of 2026, and that still hasn't changed. Like, it still has not gone over there to Department of Labor in a meaningful way. They have started dipping their toes in it and have folks kind of going over there a little bit now, spending a day or two per week actually physically at the Department of Labor, but it's still the same folks who are running the show from the Department of Ed. On July 1, so in a couple weeks, we are supposed to get our new grant awards for ESCA that are supposed to come from Department of Labor, using air quotes if you can't see it, but it's still going to come through the same system. It's not materially going to look, we're pretty sure it's not materially going to look different. That's where we are right now with OSERS and OSEP, moving over to Health and Human Services. As of right now, on July 1, we're expecting that our grant awards are still going to come through G5, that's our grants, the regular ed grant system, and they're going to flow as normal. Now, what does that look like though a year from now, and what does that look like if it's through HHS and not Department of Labor or somebody else? There's a lot more there that has not yet been addressed. What you would have seen in the press release from Department of Ed is the extent of what's actually been communicated from the Department of Ed officially on any of this. They have not released additional timelines beyond indicating that they plan on moving, and that they're shooting for possibly, some have said October 1st, but there's no concrete things in place. And we do know, because it's been publicly reported, as early as Sunday, Senator Cassidy and others in the U.S. Senate are actively moving legislation forward with bipartisan support in July that would seek to prevent that move from move OSERS from Department of Education to HHS. Now, so where we go from here is that we want to keep, I know at the state level, we're continuing to have regular communications with the U.S. Department of Education. As Brian said, even our team, the Special Education Title Services team, we have monthly calls with our state contact. At the national level, we have participation in monthly or bi-monthly calls with some of the leaders over there at the U.S. Department of Education, as well as occasionally we get to hear from folks in the other agencies. And while The administration at the federal level has still said that they are committed to moving things. There's a lot of differences of opinion across the spectrum on whether or not that's the right choice, or that it's being, or the plan to actually make these moves. So everything is moving very slowly, and nothing's done until it's done. And so I think the main thing right now that we really want to share is simply that for this year, for the 26-27 school year, the grant appropriations have all been made. We're expecting to receive our grants as normal on July 1st, and what we collect at the State Department, what the districts are doing, what the schools are doing, none of that is going to change. And we will continue to support districts and schools through all of this. But as the Special Education Advisory Council, we want to make sure that you're aware of what we're aware of, so that you can perform your duties at providing feedback and input and consult. So, I'll kick it back to you, Brian.
Thank you, Dean. I'm gonna move on to the next item. Wayne teed it up with the new SPP AVR package that is coming out and where that's at, and that will start with the data collection from this upcoming school year. And it's the submission for 28, due by February 28. That came out in March for public comment. Public comments have been made, they closed. Now OSEP has 30 days to respond to all the comments that they received. I don't anticipate they'll get it done within 30 days. So hopefully the package will be final sometime this fall, before September, so I can come back to you and tell you what the final package looks like. There are some proposed changes, not significant in the sense of changing data collection. So any proposed changes cannot affect what the law and regulations require, that the data that we're collecting. So all the data will continue to be collected. But that's where we're at with the package. The good news is, drum roll, we met requirements. We received our letter from OSEP Friday. Bert actually went into the office over the weekend and pulled it down for us and sent it out. So we met requirements again. We lost some more points, and I'll explain where. So where do the points come from? They come from the SPPAR indicators, 1 through 18, our outcome indicators and our compliance indicators. They come from timely and accurate data, Mason, and all the submissions that he does. And they come from our NAEP scores, NAEP, National Assessment of Education Performance. So where we last year when we talked, we lost a point on graduation because it's a performance indicator and they break the country into tertiles, and we're kind of in the middle tertile with our students with disabilities graduation rate, so we lost a point there. We got both of our points on dropout, which is indicator 2. We lost, I think, 4 points on assessments, and I think that includes the NAEP scores, if I understood Carrie right. That's historically what we've done.
Indicator number 2, what did you say right before that?
Indicator 2 is the dropout. Yep. And our dropout isn't as high, so I think we received both points on that. The areas we struggled this year, and again it goes back to the OSEP findings of going from district level monitoring to the LEA level, and then changing how we're monitoring and moving from self-assessment to just randomly pulling files and looking and having them upload data. So we lost a point on indicator 12, which is C to B transition. We were over 90%. So if you remember 95 and above, you receive both points. 90 to 95, you receive 1. Well, it goes a little bit lower than that, I think. The other area we struggled with this year was indicator 13, transition goals. So when we switched up, we were at 40%. So we received 0 points for that. So we'll work on that moving forward this year. And I think the other thing with what we're finding with the general supervision and identifying the first cohort, remember we kind of put all those compliance indicators and the risk assessment on one row and didn't emphasize those as much as the performance indicators. So I think what we're finding is the LEAs in this first cohort may have met requirements because they were complying with things, but their performance was a little bit down. And what jumped out was indicators 1 and 2, so graduation and dropout data. And I think we'll look a little more in graduation, and I suspect I know what we'll see, but we'll see what the data shows as we move forward. So that was good news for us. Any questions? What am I leaving out, Bert?
I think you hit the highlights.
Okay.
Meeting requirements is probably the
Yeah.
first thing.
Yeah, I saw some people check out after I said that. Okay. Any questions on any of that? Sean?
I'm not sure if this is the time to ask, but I'm going to ask. It just seems that we're offering business as usual, which is awesome in terms of OSEP and where we fit with the data. But with the update in terms of the movement, any concerns or possible conversation about, for example, moving over to a department that currently the department head has talked about disabilities as disease and some other components, resources potentially going in directions that might be impactful to the state in terms of what we do or don't do because of where resources, and there's history of that in terms of resources to test whether or not vaccines were aligned to autism. This is back 20 years ago, and whether or not that come up and have an impact. I know it's conjecture. At the same time, there's some data out there, so it sounds very business as usual. And I know in higher education, we're running around as if the fire's going. So, thoughts on that?
I think Dean might want to address that, and then Bert, and I'll go last so everybody will say everything.
Says that just so we can get the final word in. So I'm a pragmatist, right? And so I don't want to be Pollyannic about any of this, right? In the same way that we don't want to say things to make people worry about the things that probably aren't as impactful. I've heard this framed in the last year. One way to kind of think about some of these things is there's a lot coming out from the federal government, U.S. Department of Education, and others in terms of announcements, proclamations, just statements of we're going to do X, Y, and Z. Some of those things have a very material, immediate impact on real lives and real difference. Other things are put out there, and whether they intend it just to be for effect or just the fact that it is just for effect because there's so many other mechanisms and things that have to happen for any actual change to happen, that it's not the stuff that keeps me up at night. So this right now, specifically with the announcement that they have an interagency agreement between OSERS, the U.S. Department of Ed, and Health and Human Services to move things over there. That is what the administration has said. Congress does not have an appetite for that. Senator Cassidy, this is his own, what he himself said. The reason they are advancing legislation so quickly in July and they have bipartisan support around this to prevent that is for many of the things that you just said, and those kinds of concerns. It is a fact that when the U.S. Department of Education was doing a listening tour about the possibility of moving OSERS to another agency, one of the things they heard overwhelmingly, one of the things that was said overwhelmingly and recorded overwhelmingly, was that if you are going to move OSERS or OSEP to another agency, move it to Department of Labor, keep it with OESE, do not move it to HHS. When the U.S. Department of Education made their announcement last week on Wednesday, part of their press release was said, we listened to families and parents who overwhelmingly wanted it to go to HHS. That's not what the record shows. That's not what people asked for. there's a lot of pushback at the congressional level, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of feedback elsewhere too on this. So it's not a done deal that all of this will actually move. But that's why we all have different roles. I'm sharing the information that we have been part of at the state level. But that's where we want to share with you. I'll give it to Bert.
Thank you, Dean. What I have to say is two things. One, we have parent advocacy. And parent advocacy is not going to allow for HHS to create what I call centers for students with significant disabilities. Because we have something called an individual education program. That IEP is what drives the service for students. It's all about the students. So unless they have a theory to change the IEP process where some group is going to come in and take over and place students in placements outside of what an IEP team feels is appropriate, I don't see this happening. My concern is more for young adults. Not for the students that are currently enrolled in school programs, but for those that exit the school program and then have behaviors or have intellectual disabilities that then will be tagged. Instead of going to a prison, they will go to some other location. So I think for this group, two things. One is continue to advocate for students with exceptionalities, and two, work with those agencies that support the adult population in case there's ever any leaning towards this, if it should go to HHS, so that that does not become the norm for persons with disabilities. Because we know when it was there before, that did happen. And we want to prevent that from happening, because no parent wants that for their child. And we need to give our students and our young adults appropriate placements and supports, and not create settings because HHS thinks it's a disease mentality. So I think with what Dean said and what I'm saying is keep the focus on the child, on the young adult, and make sure they get what they need, not what the government thinks they need.
Thank you, Bert. They didn't take everything I was going to say. I don't know what higher ed is doing. I think some state associations are getting together to figure out how they can advocate. So to Dean's point, when he brought up Senator Cassidy, it's not only getting a message to the executive branch, but the legislative branch. So your state Congress people, through the state agency, through individually for yourself, I think is another, what I'm kind of hearing in the background, that people are organizing and trying to reach out and reinforce their message. Oh, that prompted something. Yes?
And if you are part of NEA for anybody, please make sure you go to their site, click on a link, and it goes directly to your congressional people that it needs to go to, concerns about this. Please send letters daily. I just like being the annoying little foreigner who just hit that send button.
Congratulations, you took Dean's statement. Made him speechless. Other great conversation.
I don't know what our role is within SEAC. Sadly, Senator Cassidy is a short timer, and there's a lot of consideration that this actually won't get through before he has to leave. He lost his primary, so he's not going to be a senator as of January 1st. But more importantly, what we're seeing is, like, for example, from the top down, there's been direction on lots of different things. So, for example, in funding for personal prep, that's been a key component to, a key element amongst several other parts to be able to get more staff into the field, particularly in the areas of low incidence and things of that nature. Those are being reduced. For example, the most recent personal prep just came out. I think the deadline just came past. I can't recall. And the reason I can't recall is in the past, we could submit as a university multiple personal preps. So for example, right now we probably have one. We have one in low incidence. We have one in early childhood. I think we have two in early childhood. So we have 3 in this cycle. Well, we can't compete in that manner any further. It's only 1 per institution. So already they're reducing the number of funding for potential students to fill into districts. And of course, our district colleagues, I've heard from so many turns of, due to economics, reducing positions or not being able to fill positions. So that's having implications. And of course, from parents, oh my gosh,
Bert, you and I go a long time back, but my goodness, I don't know how many parents here in the state of Kansas, as well as across the country, that are finding themselves, particularly in the area of Down syndrome, I have a son with Down syndrome, in segregated environments. Very early on, I'm going to be down in Tulsa later today, and parents there, kindergarten, first grade, they're leading into a segregated environment at that level. And that's not limited. That's and there's places here in the state of Kansas. So I'm just worried about the implications. I don't know what SEAC's role is at. It's just as if we're thinking business as usual, and yet it definitely has changed in the last 2 years. I just at least wanted to bring it up in our OSUP conversation. Carrie?
Yeah, I just want to provide another example of how the federal policy is changing. So for our state personnel development grant program, so that's for us, it's about $1.4 million. We've had that for a number of years. Every state has the opportunity to apply that. It only goes towards state departments of education. And its purpose is to support the development of an effective personnel development program for your state. So it focuses on recruitment, retention, effective professional development, all of those things. So it's been a very broad and written RFA, which allows states to really tailor it to your individual needs and situations. The RFP that came out this year, this spring, has one absolute priority, and that is special education registered teacher apprentice program. So that's just an example where they've taken and narrowed a focus. So in the application that has that promotes the registered teacher apprentice program is going to receive priority over any of the other ones that we use. So that's an example of how they're carving, I'll call it, the policy a little bit different in addition to the number of things. So it's not just the number of things, it's what's in the RFPs, RFPs.
Trish has a comment. This is the last time I'm doing the 26 to 31 package agenda item.
To speak a little to your concern and to several people in the room that I've had emails from, I'm on the Governor's Behavioral Health Service Planning Council for the State Department of Education. One of the conversations that comes up at all of our meetings, and we meet monthly, is services versus settings. And as your state agency person, I continuously fight for what services are we being able to provide in the school setting. So if these conversations are coming up, if you're hearing them, please send me information, because we have to bring that to the Services Council, because we have to continue talking about services and not building settings for those people. And I fight when I hear people that come in and give public comment or off the street come and want to give us information at the council. We continuously talk about our Kansas citizens, our kids who need support, are the people that you're talking about, and the place where they have the right to a free and appropriate setting is in their public education, in their neighborhood school. So if you're hearing comments or concerns, send them my way. I will continuously put them on that table, because that is a place that those reports go to the governor. And I feel like we do have another avenue of advocacy if you want to reach out to that.
Sorry to mess up your schedule, Bert.
You didn't mess up anything. This
Sorry.
is what we're here for.
I apologize for taking time, but I do want to let everyone know that, like Sean was saying, Dr. Smith was saying that, I mean, we are very concerned as parent training information centers across the nation. We have a coalition that has been working very diligently at the legislative level in Washington, meeting with lots of different people. We are going to be sponsoring a national call-in day. I can't tell you what to do, but I guess I just wanted to say that we do need to, speak out and use our voices.
to follow up, you didn't disrupt it. This is your guys' advisory council, and your job is to advise us. I think this is a very healthy conversation. So I think if I can summarize, what I hope you're hearing is we only control what we control. So we know what the law is, we're going to continue to comply with that, but that doesn't mean we don't share concerns. So I think as part of the advisory council, and if you guys want to talk about this, you can, it's to advise us, and those concerns can be raised at KSDE. And then you hear all the concerns, so we're tapped in at a national level with our organization, a lot of you at the state and national level as well. So those will continue. Okay. Other questions? Okay. I think I'm done.
Huge thank you to everyone who's made comments. Thank you, Dean. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Bert. We will take a 15-minute break, so I think that puts us at 10:22. Is that correct? Is my math good?
Yes.
Math people? Good? I can't do brain math like that, so we'll see you in 15 minutes. Thank you very much. All right. It is 10:22 according to my phone. Ooh, 10:23. Let's get started again. Welcome back. I do want to share something before I turn this over to Bert. I just had an interesting conversation in the hall and then with Bert. We as a council can make a position statement. This is for you, Sean. We can make a position statement that we would then vote on as a council, and then it would be presented to the board. So I would just like to extend this out there. Please email me with your thoughts on that, and the leadership team will work on drafting a position statement. Probably would like to send it out to you prior to our September meeting. We meet again in September 24th, so that you can at least have a chance to read it and provide some feedback on it, and then we can put that on the agenda for September 24th to discuss. And then if it's something that we agree to, we can vote on it, and then it would be something we would present to the State Board of Education. Is that correct? All right, I'm going to turn it over now to Bert, and he's going to talk about the annual report.
Thank you. Normally, we don't do the annual report until January, February, when we've had time to get it put together, but since I am exiting, I went ahead and put the SEAC annual report together for 25-26. So I believe you have a draft copy somewhere. You can go to ksde.gov if you have a device with you, and you bring up in the search Special Ed Advisory Council, and you should be able to find it there. I know that Joyce sent it out. But just in case you don't have it and you don't have that opportunity, I will tell you that I type up every meeting, and I have all the topics that we discussed and the presenters that discussed them at what meeting. And then at the end of the year, as your secretary, I type up the annual report. Joyce helps me by putting the membership in and some other information. I do a secretary's letter, and then I also do highlights of council accomplishments. And then these 6 areas are what we cover in the annual report. By the way, there were 97 entries that I typed into my Excel spreadsheet. And from that, then I have to decide where they fit within these priorities. So the first priority is advise the state education agency of unmet needs within the state in the education of children and youth with exceptionalities. We also have 3 subheadings under that, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on subheadings. I just want to spend the time on the primary indicators. There are 3 of those. Priority area 2, comment publicly on any rules and regulations proposed by the state regarding the education of children and youth with exceptionalities. So there are entries for 1 and entries for 2. Priority area 3, advise the SEA in developing evaluations and reporting on data to the Secretary under Section 618 of the Act, which is the IDEA Part B services. There are 4 areas under that.
Priority Area 5, advise the SEA in developing corrective action plans to address findings identified in federal monitoring reports under Part B of the Act. We have one area under that, which has to do with our DMS findings, and then how we review those and make recommendations to the agency. Priority Area 5, advise the SEA in developing and implementing policies relating to the coordination of services for children and youth with exceptionalities. And by the way, many of you ex officio members will find all of your information is in Indicator 5. There are a few of your comments that ended up in other sections, but that pretty much is the way that you're advising us, and then we're putting it in as evidence of what we discussed and what you provided. And then the one area we didn't have any entries for this year, which I hope that you will review next year, and that is advise on the education of eligible students with disabilities who have been convicted as adults and incarcerated in adult prisons. We really had not done monitoring on that this past year like we had the year before. We had a team that went out the year before and did monitoring. And then last year, because of everything else that we were dealing with, we put that on hiatus, and then it will come back as part of the monitoring process that Brian talked about, where we'll be looking at our cohorts and how we're going to look at the individual LEAs and who's going to be monitored within a 6-year cohort plan. Where in the past we had 3 years, we divided that by districts. So that meant 85 to 90 districts to 95 districts were under monitoring under cohort 1, 2, and 3. Now we'll have cohort 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 for LEAs, and by the way, there are about 80 of those. And then we will have the 6th year where we can either go ahead and do corrective action with any of those, or we can bring any up that are not meeting requirements. So that we always have the option of monitoring an agency if they are not meeting requirements and have not improved their corrective action within 1 year, which OSEP gives us and we give to LEAs. If they don't do that corrective action for that 2nd year, then they go into a needs intervention status and they come back for review, because you're not allowed not to meet requirements. You're allowed not to meet requirements for 1 year, but you cannot have multiple years of not meeting requirements. And that's how OSEP looks at states, where states look at needs technical assistance, needs intensive technical assistance, needs substantial intervention, and so they review states that way. And that's why it's so important that you meet your requirements, because when you meet your requirements, you're not dealing with corrective action from the federal government specific to your SPP indicators and your file review and the other things we're monitored for. So that's why it's so important that the state continues to meet requirements. And if you don't meet it, you don't meet it, and you just do whatever you need to do to bring it into corrective action. But districts and LEAs don't understand that puts more work on them as well. Because when we're going to have to do something about it, that means we're going to have districts do something about it, or LEAs in this case. So I wanted you to get the annual report before I left so that you'd have the opportunity to review it. It has gone to your leadership group, and they have gone through and provided me with feedback, and we made the changes that they suggested. So I believe it's in final form. Please review it and be prepared to approve it at the September meeting.
I have a few changes to make, just a few, and then I'll send another copy out.
Okay, so as soon as Joyce makes the few corrective statements, then we'll get that resent out in draft form, and then I'll ask that you approve it at your next meeting, so you go ahead and get it in the record early, so it's not sitting and waiting for you, because I feel the new director would have to go back and review all your minutes and try and figure out what was done in the past, and that's one less thing they need to be worried about or concerned about. Any questions about the annual report? Yes, Brooke?
Based on what you recommended we do next year?
Based on your recommendations of what we do next year, you mentioned something about individuals with disabilities that have moved into the correction system. This might be a good time to pitch that we need someone on SEAC, based on what you had told me earlier, that we need a representative from adult correction facilities.
Yes, we do have one open position currently that Brandon Gay filled.
And that would be someone that works at a correctional facility that deals with adult student population that are still receiving education and special education. And it goes through age 26. For the student with a disability, if they have a student, it's birth to age 26. So that's how you meet the majority requirement, but we're dealing with students through age 21. Does that make sense? So that's what we're looking for. Lawrence Gardner is where Brandon was working. Trish filled that position before she talked Brandon into filling it. And he met his 6 years and then was no longer eligible. So that is a position that we're looking to fill. Anything else? Any other questions? You do great work. I hope you know that. And you're very necessary for the work we do and well respected. And so we want you to continue to feel that and to provide that support for the state, because we have to have you to support this work.
Thank you, Bert. All right, Mason, are you?
I'm here.
Hello, Mason. So, oh, thank you, thank you. Are you ready to go? Yes.
Whenever you are.
All right, we're going to move to follow up to the end of the year data review. Mason, thank you very much.
Thank you. I brought some handouts of the slides. If you guys want one, you're more than welcome to have one. So the last time I presented on the students, the IEP students in the virtual programs was in January. And at that time, I didn't have 2026 data available yet. So what I did was I went ahead and added the 2026 information to the December 1 collection of kids that were in the virtual programs. And you can see that we had an increase from the 25 school year of about 200 and, I don't know, more than 200, whatever that number is, 230 some odd kids, up to 1,600. We had 1,602 was the number of special ed kids in virtual programs on this past December 1 count. I added, at your request, some general ed numbers. I was able to get the numbers for the general ed kids off of the project drive on our federal building level reports. So I searched on all 70 of the virtual programs that are in the state, and you can see over the past, 5-6 years, we have an increase in special ed from essentially 785 to 1,602. The same time frame, we had an increase of 11,000 general ed kids up to 18,000 for this past year. SPED increased at a rate of about 104%, so we more than doubled the special ed population of virtual schools over that time. And the general ed population only increased about 57%. One statistic that I noticed was interesting with the data that was on the general ed side. 7% of the general ed kids are only part-time virtual. I don't have a similar type of number for special ed, so I really can't compare those two. But I thought that was something interesting that I'd throw in there for you guys. Okay, next slide. These are the top, back in January when I did it with including in 25 and 26, these are still the top 7 schools that offer virtual programs throughout the state. These top 9 constitute 69% of all the virtual IEP kids across the state. No real big changes. Rocket Online still is the top school with the most kids. They've increased a little bit from 13% to 14%, whereas Insight kind of went down a percentage point, and everybody else pretty much stayed the same, except for the Topeka Virtual School. That one went up 9%, so that was kind of a significant change in that respect. Gifted kids pretty much stayed the same. The Lawrence Virtual School and the Kansas Connection Academy have the most gifted kids for both 25 and 26. Okay, next slide. Okay, so this is still no changes on the stuff on the left-hand side. I don't have any updated numbers. Those were from January as well. We had 70 schools in 2026 school year. I didn't have any updated data on the ELL kids, so I just left those the same. In terms of grade levels, I thought the grade levels were kind of interesting. For special ed, there was no changes really from 25 data to 26 data. So I just added what the general ed population was for the September 20 counts. And we had a big difference between the younger kids. 5% of the kindergartners and preschoolers, of all the kids that were in virtual programs, 5% were kindergarten and preschoolers, 35% were grades 1 through 5, 6 through 8 grade were a little bit smaller on the general ed side, that was a 19%, and grades 9 through 12 were real close to each other. But for the general ed side, they collect an ungraded category. So we had 12% of those kids in that September 20 data pool that were noted as ungraded. For special ed purposes and the way we have to calculate our OSEP environments, we have to have a grade level for a student. So a student may be ungraded on the general ed side, but on the special ed side, they typically have a grade that's somewhere in the 9 to 12 range. So that's where I think the difference is between the 9 through 12. Throw the ungraded up there, we're 62% versus 58, which is pretty close. Then I took a look at the disability categories for the 26 school year. I think that's what that is. And I got that. Yeah, so for the disability categories, we were pretty much on the same. ED went down 2%, LD went up 2%, but pretty much everybody stayed the same. There really wasn't much of a difference there. So that, and on the far right-hand side, I don't have any updates on that. Those are all end of the year data, so I don't have end of the year 2026 information yet, but that was the FTE by disability. That was from the January report that I did for you guys. I think there should be one more slide. Okay, for service locations for the special ed kids in the 26 school year, the home environment kind of went down a little bit, 3%. The console only went up about the same 3%. Virtual classrooms went down a little bit, but for the 26, we had a significant number of the kids that were in the correctional facilities pop up as participating in virtual programs. And then a few more in all other scattered types of programs. The bottom, the leaver rates, and that I don't have those yet. Those are just 2025 data. That was from the January report. I don't have any updates on that. And there might be another slide.
No.
Okay, well, I had some demographic data with race ethnicity. One thing that I found that was interesting when I looked at the special ed genders for 2026, of the special ed kids that were in virtual programs, 56 were male, 44 were female. But when I looked at the September 20 data, it was flip-flopped. There were, and I'm not sure what slide that was on, but it flip-flopped. So when I looked at the September 20 data, 45% of the virtual kids were male and 55 were female. So I thought that was an interesting contrast. For race ethnicities, special ed, the Native American was a 2%, September 20 was a 1. For the African American population, 9% were sped, 8% on September 20th. For Hispanic, it was 14 special ed, September 20th had 17. Multiracial was 9%, but for September 20 was only 5. I thought that was a little bit different. The Pacific Islanders basically stayed the same. Whites stayed the same, but for special ed Asian kids, it was less than 1%, but when I looked at the September 20 data, it was a full 2%. So I thought that was a significant difference. So that was the data I put together at your request. If you've got any other requests for information. Carrie, did you have a question?
So I just got a question on your cell that talks about the leaver rate in 2025.
Yeah.
Pages 14 through 21. When it says return to general education,
Yeah.
just tell me a little bit more about who that is.
Okay, so return to general education is an OSEP category. So any of those kids that completed objectives, IEP goals and objectives, and went back to general ed, they're in those categories. The kids that leave the public school system for homeschool or virtual programs and no longer receive IEP services, those are the kinds of kids that go into that program or into that category. So that's what the leaver rates were. They were in special ed, they're no longer in special ed, and they didn't exit out for graduation, dropout, move no to be continuing, any of those other OSEP categories.
So they're no longer receiving an IEP?
Well, they may still be on an active IEP, but they're not getting services.
Through a virtual school?
That is correct.
So therefore they could go back to brick and mortar?
Tell me what you mean, they could go back to brick and mortar.
If they're a virtual school, if I'm Lawrence Virtual School,
yeah,
and I said switch over to Lawrence High School, would I fall in that category, return to general ed?
Yes.
So therefore I go back to brick and mortar school. I'm still getting an IEP, but I'm no longer in Lawrence Virtual School.
Well, you could be in Lawrence Virtual School and return to general ed as well. You could go the opposite. You could go from the brick and mortar school to the virtual school.
So this is a catch-all?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, it's just a catch-all for those kids that were on an IEP at some point in time during the school year and were receiving services at some point in time during the school year and ceased to receive services by the end of the school year. That's what that leaver rate means.
But you also said I should still have an IEP.
Yeah, yes, many of these kids have an active IEP, and the school district sends a ready, willing, and able letter. Hey, when you're done with your virtual program, we're ready to provide services. When you come back.
So that doesn't, to your question, this data doesn't say too much to me, because it's, if I leave, I'm no longer receiving services, but then you said, but I can have an IEP still. So, or I could go back to brick and mortar for it's just a very big catch-all.
It's just important to, I just think it's like, when you look at it, return to general education, you think, okay, they went, like, they no longer need services
Yes.
and they're returning to the general education.
That is true. That is some of the population that's in there.
That's not all of it, right?
That's not all of them. That is correct. Revocation of services would be one where they return to general ed.
Could it be that they were an IEP student that were on virtual because that's where they were serving their long-term suspension, and now their suspension's over and now they're going back into the brick and mortar and still have their IEP services but are no longer virtual?
Typically, suspended kids are still active. They don't exit special ed.
Thank you.
Good questions. Anybody else?
One of the things I just wondered about was, as far as like the disciplinary removal, so we have a virtual program, but we absolutely try to avoid that at all costs, and I wondered if the increase in virtual overall, if school districts were half perfectly, disciplinary removals, that is where they're landing, and whether that has increased so much, because some of them might be using it as a placement. I just, from my experience from working with virtual schools, a lot of them still maintain services with the student transfers there. I mean, almost all of them do. It's very, very, very rare that people will go or choose to not.
agree with that, and I was curious whether or not the increase in console-only services had to do with that they're going to the virtual and we're not giving you direct services, that's all consultative. And that was, my guess is why that increased from 25 to 26. Anybody else?
It does seem interesting that 7 of the 70 schools have almost 70% of students identified with IEPs.
Well,
2025, 26, 7 schools serve 69% of all virtual IDA students.
Right. Of all the IDEA students, 69% go to those 7.
And there's 70 virtual schools in the state of Kansas.
Correct. So some of them only have populations of 3 and 10, I was saying, in some of those virtual programs.
Like Insight and Kansas Kansas First Academy. So Nebraska being that wrong. So the Insight School Kansas and Kansas Virtual Academy are basically the same school, just a different grade level. But that's I was reading that wrong. That's Kansas.
And the percentages of those in terms of prevalence, that's, man, Lawrence is probably larger than what Lawrence has in terms of the brick and mortar students with disabilities, 21%.
Because I'm guessing, I
You
haven't.
think you gifted in there?
Well, I'm also guessing all of these are open to the state, that's why they're the most prevalent ones. So like for our virtual, we are only, we have to reside within our boundaries.
Yes.
Right.
And these are also prevalent, because I get requests for these all the time, like for parents and records. So these are all likely open to the state, why their population is so large. But yeah, it is concerning, right, that the amount of students with disabilities in that Lawrence area is high.
I took the December 1 count over the September 20 count. That's how I got that prevalence.
30%.
Yeah.
Right.
Trish, you got a question?
Where does Greenbush Virtual fit into this?
They were probably the 31%. In that 31%, I don't know specifically off the top of my head how many kids they had. They don't count kids on December 1. Yeah, so.
I think that's important to point out as well.
Okay, good. Anybody else?
Data that would be interesting in the future would be, there's that churning effect in virtual, in and out, in and out. And I know years ago when we had the National Center on this, we found that students with disabilities did not particularly churn. They tended to go to virtual and stay. Be curious to see, like you were sharing over the years, things are switching in terms of gender. But I'd be curious to find out over time how many students with disabilities enter and stay. Like for example, you have a large number, you said, of kindergarten first graders. Be curious to see, do they stay through the elementary years versus maybe their non-disabled peers? I'm not sure if that data can be gleaned, but that would be interesting data.
Good question.
So.
Anybody else? I hope that helps. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mason. That was enlightening. And a great conversation. All right, Bert is going to talk to us about the new special ed director and the reorganization. Wait, we'll give you the microphone.
Well, here's what I know about the new director. Did you hear crickets? That decision is being made possibly this week. We'll see. I know they did interviews, and I think they may be doing some follow-ups this week. I'm not sure, but we should have somebody named. Oh, Pat knows. Pat.
Dr. Nugent is doing some phone interviews with 3 individuals that interviewed for the position this morning, and then she'll be ready to make a decision.
Thank you, Pat. And understand it will be her decision. She will decide who's going to work with her on the Division of Learning Services. So that's about the new director, but I'm not going to wait till the end to tell you that Joyce has decided that July 31st will be her last day. And actually, she had said that before I announced mine. But I don't want to overstep her because she's been great and gracious to work with and really done a great job. And thank you, Joyce, for all you did. Really appreciate it. Always willing to try harder, always willing to see where we may have missed something, and then finding a way. I mean, she brought Pat with her today, so, I mean, it's the friends you make along the way that are all the difference. So we should know something hopefully by the end of the week. Okay?
You're still up here?
Oh, I'm still up. I'm waiting for Brooke to announce I'm still up.
You're still up.
Okay, as far as the reorganization at KSDE, they've added a new deputy commissioner position. And that new deputy commissioner will be looking at accountability, assessments, state and federal reporting, and part of the ESEA team has been moved over to that new deputy commissioner's position. That will be Twyla, and her team will be going over to that part of the division. So it's Zach Conrad, doctor. He had worked with MTSS years ago, so he has some, and he's worked for the State Department. He has some knowledge and some skill, and he's a very nice person. And I think if any of you get the opportunity to meet and greet him, he starts officially on July 1st. And then another change that's happened is that Joe Jewett, who was another assistant director for elementary and secondary education, which most of you know as title programs, he will be under Dr. Jay Scott, and that will be implementation, school improvement and implementation. And so that team has been divided, and I've been very verbal about ensuring that they continue to work collaboratively and together and have time through the week so that our ESEA programs do not become splintered, because it could easily happen. And they've developed a really good working relationship, and I want to see that relationship continue. And then special education will be its own director of just special education. So it will no longer include ESEA. And 3 assistant directors go with that position, and they're all here. Brian Dempsey, Carrie Haig, and Dean Zeitz will all continue under special education. So you have a formidable special education department at KSDE. Pointing to Trish, as far as change?
Yes, that Trish is moving to the implementation and supports team.
Yes, one of the things that I'll just mention that's been explained to me is that there are certain programs within ESEA that may require more consultation in the field. And that's why Joe's side of the team was put under school improvement, so that they could be very point in time providing a professional development in the field around things like McKinney-Vento, around neglected, delinquent, around things related to personal social, because they're all out in the field providing individualized support and training to the field. So a district can contact KSDE and say, I need McKinney-Vento support. I need to have social, emotional, ESI, discipline, suicide, bullying, whatever. And that way they can provide that support through the implementation side of the Division of Learning Services. Now that's the way it was explained to me. And then Twyla will do state and federal reporting side, which is the Title I services and supports that don't go away, and they continue to be required. But they will work collaboratively together. And I think I've hit all of the major changes. Carrie?
Would you please review the support staff changes on our team?
Well, I'll let you and Dean and Brian do that, so I don't leave anybody out.
You really want me to do it?
I'm giving you the mic, so that tells you something. I'm brave soul.
So our administrative support within our team is now we've gone from like 5 positions to 2. So one of those will continue to be the state director's lead person for Joyce, and then so we're able to hire a person to replace Joyce. And then we have one other person that we have that is employed that's able to support the work of the Kansas Integrated Accountability System that currently works for Brian. All the administrative there are two other administrative assistants that have been moved to the Fiscal Service and Operations team. Actually Public Service Administrator is gone, and we're not able to refill that position, and we're not able to refill another position of a person that will now be doing all the travel for the agency. And
Which was Alicia, who used to.
Alicia, yeah, so, and then, and my person will be doing the grants and contracts. We'll just be doing contracts for the agency. And we still do the grants, but we have 2 administrative assistants instead of 5.
Thank you, Carrie. One of the things that's going on in the agency that I'll just brief you on, and try not to block the camera again, is the reorganization has a long-range plan around systems of support in the state. I'm not going to let the cat out of the bag, but I'm going to share some of the organizational plan that will occur the next year. Currently, we have 3 accreditation regions in the state, and we have 3 region executives. And those 3 region executives have approximately 95 districts that they have to consult with twice a year. And they also attended their school improvement opportunities where like systems would come together and talk about what they were doing in their action planning around the fundamentals. So that's going to continue, but the plan is to take funding, just being honest, and create some new positions. And the state feels like we need to have more regional executives. We need to be looking at literacy specialists in each of those 6 regions, plus the urban districts will have basically a region of their own, and we will have special purpose schools that will have regional coordination. Not all of them will have a literacy coach, but the 6 for sure, plus I don't know what they're going to do for the larger systems. They're going to need more than that, but they'll have literacy coaches, they'll have instructional coaches, 2 or 3 instructional coaches. And we're moving more into a framework of student accountability. So next year, the student outcomes matter. And so there will be targeted assistance, I believe, for any systems that are underperforming compared to where the expectation is. And that's part of the teaming around bringing the title services where we have the identification of buildings. And those buildings then have to have plans within either a comprehensive support team or a targeted support or an ATSI support. So this will provide opportunities for more support for districts so that we have alignment with all of our systems. It's to have one system that works for the state. So that currently is a dream model that's out there that has the potential to take fruition once the organization does its reorg with purposefulness to support the field for student outcomes. Because we know that the legislators are only interested in one thing, and that's state assessment scores. They laugh at us over students with disabilities getting diplomas and saying we just give them out, they don't earn them, which is very offensive to me. When systems work so hard to get kids to meet requirements and then they're poo-pooed about the graduation. We have a chance, by the way, in November to make a difference. I'm not telling people what to do, but I'm just saying if you don't like what you have, you always have an opportunity to change it. But as far as the agency, it's strong, it's going to continue, it's going to work on these things as long as we have the leadership that we have. And we also have a new commissioner. And Dr. Jake Steele is highly interested in instructional support and student outcomes. Those are 2 priorities that have already been established within our executive leadership. And so I can't argue with that because quality instruction is so critical, and high quality instructional materials to students receiving what they need to gain the skills that will help them in their life and help them to be successful. So, I don't know. Yes, Beth?
So you mentioned additional support within the regional areas. Is it specifically focused around literacy, or the long-term plan is that it'll be specifically focused around literacy?
It will be focused on literacy from a perspective of having an instructional coach in each of the regions, and then instructional coaches will be available to support the instruction at district levels to provide that TA and professional development around math, science, social studies, all of the content areas is my understanding at this point.
And for all students in special ed and within the general ed population. So like if I think about my daughter with dyslexia, and I think, what was it, House Bill 2485 that came out that has 38 new items that tackle literacy. So a lot of those don't tackle how they're working to build literacy skills for kids in special education. Will those regional coaches support all students within the districts?
Yes, that's the bottom line, is to provide that support.
What type of training will these instructional coaches have to bring back?
That's an excellent question that still needs to be answered.
Oh, I
Because-
would like to work on that team.
All right, well, I don't have any information on what the expectation for credentialing will be or for outcomes, but I'm just giving you a vision at this point in time, and just keep in mind that could change. But right now, that is the vision.
Thank you, Bert. Any questions, further questions for Bert?
Carrie, those changes, is that, I mean, you're going from 5 to 2? Is that going to have impact on what your shop can do, as an example?
Yes, we will be assessing it over the next 60 days and looking at the 80% of her job description that she won't be doing and how we might redistribute those duties.
Let me say it a different way. The expectations of what you're currently doing haven't changed. You
No,
just
they
have
have
less
not.
staff.
No, they have not.
One change that I had is I don't have an assistant that I work with now specifically. And so School Mental Health Coalition is no longer in person. I'm sorry. School Mental Health Coalition is no longer in person because I can't schedule, host, run. I cannot do. I have been very blessed with amazing assistants, but I cannot do what they're doing while hosting and running and facilitating a meeting. So now we are all online. And it got rid of our in-person option. So those are those things that it takes a lot of time and attention to detail that they do so well. They hand us a packet when we travel, and now we're maybe scheduling our own hotels, and there's going to be a lot of change in those areas. So customer service that they provide so well, it's going to shift what we're doing, but we're also going to be out in the field. So there's just a lot of unknown. But one of the things that we had to do to adjust is we couldn't do hybrid and do in-person and online, because you can't run it and then watch the chat and do all the things for slides. So it just, I don't have that ability.
Thank you. All right, I think we are ready for our ex officio, and I believe Families Together. Leslie, you are up.
While I'm making my way up here, I will tell you that Lisa Howell is with me today. So Lisa is on our leadership team, and she's also the Education Advocate Coordinator. She coordinates that program for us, and she's also on the Literacy Advisory Council. So she's someone that, if you know of people that want to reach out, please have them do so.
I'm trying to.
It's okay. And if you can't, that's okay. Most of you have seen the report I usually give every time, so it just gives you a snapshot of what's been going on at the Parent Training Information Center. It looks very similar to the last time. Our numbers are very close. It was kind of funny. Brian, who helps me put it together, he was kind of slow getting it to me for him, and I was asking him about it, and he says, well, we've gone down in our number of consultations, and so we went down, we're 2,478 for the last quarter, but we went down a little bit, so I guess he was trying to figure out how he could make that change. But it's okay. It's okay if we went down. June is summertime. We like that the phone's not ringing quite as much right now. But yeah, for some of the new people, I know Beth, she may have stepped out, but she knows families together well. But just in case other new members, again, we just like to give a snapshot of how things are looking for us. I know that this can be sent around for everybody to look at, but you'll be able to see how many consultations we do. You'll be able to see what tier it is, because we have a tiered system where it's tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. Gets more intensive as the tiers go up, and then also we have one that's called tier 3 IEP mentor, and that one is the most intense, if you will. That's where the parents actually sign, we call it a little bit of a contract, but they sign that they're going to be very involved in the process with us by getting us all the things they need us to review, and actively going through charting the life course with us to plan and prepare for meetings. It's a great initiative program that we use, and it also, I think, leads to stronger teams. The schools also report that they really are appreciative of it, because the parents come to those meetings prepared and ready to talk about what they need to talk about. And also we do that with our students too. So we have a tier 3 IEP mentor program for the students as well. Also doing some cool stuff with students related to IEP podcasts. We're going to be recording things, Trish. We're going to be recording several more of those over this summer, so that students can be ready to share that with their teams. I'm real excited about that as well. But again, this just gives you a snapshot. If you want to just go ahead and scroll up, that would be great. You can take a look at this later. This pie chart over here at the bottom, that looks very similar every quarter. And that's all right. If you go down, that's okay. But obviously that individualized consultation that we do with parents every day is always the biggest piece of our pie. But you can see here that the student assistance is really growing too, and that's great to see that, because we're working with a lot more youth and young adults as they're preparing for adulthood. We're working, I mentioned that we have a new grant with the Department of Commerce, so doing a lot of work with workforce centers across the state as well, really focusing on employment. That grant serves youth and young adults ages 14 through 24. So if any of you have kids of your own or people you know that you want to refer to that program, we'd love to talk to you more about that. The youth specialists on our team work individually with those youth and young adults and take them through an 8-week course to really focus on self-advocacy and mental health and mental wellness, and then setting goals. And the IEP podcast is also part of that program. If you go to the very bottom, Chase Fest, you'll see our third annual Chase Fest is coming up in September. We had to switch it from this summer. It was going to happen this summer, and then the World Cup kind of messed up things. we couldn't afford those hotel rooms, so we moved it to the last Saturday in September. Please check that out when you get it. You can go to the QR code or watch for that, because we have a couple of really dynamic keynote speakers, one opening up and one closing. Really have some great credentials behind them. One of them works for the Chiefs, and yes, those Chiefs. But then the opening keynote has just done some incredible things in his life, and I think he's going to be a real inspiration to the youth and young adults that will be there. This particular fest, the youth people on our team don't want to call it a conference, so this fest is focused on middle and high school and then young adults. So looking forward to that. And then at the bottom, I do just want to, since Lisa is here, and she coordinates our education and advocate program and just does an incredible job with it, you can see here what's been happening in the last quarter. Again, for new people, when you see the asterisk saying 42 new, that means of those 76 appointments in April, 42 of those were with brand new students. The others would represent students that were already in the system, but that would have been relocated, and so an education advocate would have changed. I always like to point out that the final cancellation means final, which we love seeing final because that usually means adoptions have gone through, or kids, maybe they don't need those services anymore, so they've been signed out, or they've graduated and moved on. So, or they've turned 18 and become their own legal decision makers. So I think that's it. I told you last time we met that our website would soon be up and new. We're still working on it, so it's not quite there yet, but do please keep watching. I think it's going to be very new and improved, and I hope we don't have any problems with it. All right, turn it over to who's next.
I think it's me anyway. So she didn't have to go all the way back. Ashley Enns, and I am here on behalf of the Kansas Association of Special Education Administrators. No official report necessarily today because it's the summertime, but I think back in April, one thing we mentioned was the Leadership Institute that Casey had partnered with USA Kansas on, so that is getting started in the fall. Registration's open and all of those things are up and rolling, so we're pretty excited about that partnership and to see what that brings in the next school year. So that'll be coming up. My computer died, so I'm trying to check my notes too. I usually share an information sheet that has all of our officers and contact information, so I'll share that out and also include that in our report in September. And then just for those who are new, Casey has what we call a liaison committee, and so we have a liaison that attends different meetings like this one to help bring back information that might be of relevance to the board or to different committees that we have in Casey, and so that's my role. We do also have an administrator of special education programs who it serves on SEAC, but my role is more to listen, bring you guys information about Casey, and then bring back information to our committee and to our board. So thanks for the time.
Thank you. Is Mike with us online? The Disability Rights Center. Pat, do you know if Mike's online? Joyce? Okay, Melanie is online, correct? Yes. Melanie is our representative for the Kansas State Board of Education. Do you have anything to share with us?
Melanie, we can't hear you.
I wonder if
I have it open, but there's nothing coming through.
Melanie, we're so sorry. We tested it earlier and it looked like it was working. Joyce, can you hear her on yours?
No, I don't hear her. Oh, there we go. Nope.
There we go.
I don't think so.
Okay, we've got it. Hang on just a moment, Melanie.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Jerry. I was afraid of this at the top of the meeting. I thought, oh, we're going to be in trouble later.
I don't know. I'm not familiar enough with Teams to know how to fix it.
Melanie, can you hear me?
I can hear you echoing, so if you mute, maybe the room can hear me okay?
Well, we have the micro, just go ahead and speak. I think we've got you.
Okay. I will be brief. Hello, everyone. I'm sorry I'm not there with you in person today. I've learned my lesson, and it's always better to be in the room. I'm Melanie Haas from the State Board of Education. Just wanted to give you a really short update on our latest board meeting. Obviously, we have a new commissioner. See, this is the great thing about going at the end is you've already heard all of the department updates. So yes, we have a new commissioner at KSDE, Dr. Jake Steele, in June highlighted for the board just that his focus on high quality instruction for every student. And that was a theme that kind of ran throughout the meeting. We kicked off with a half-day session on Monday, which we what device usage looks like in schools, whether that's iPads, typically in the younger grades, or laptops, maybe middle and high school. And over the last several board meetings, we've had different districts come before the board and talk about how they are utilizing that technology. Some people call it technology. I like to call them devices because technology, I think, is a broader group. So how they're utilizing those devices in their schools. Dr. Steele's goal, and I think that's something that the board is embracing, is a concept of aligning policy and resources. And he's also focused on accountability. You heard about the hiring of a third deputy commissioner, in Dr. Zach Conrad. And so that was kind of our kickoff to the meeting, was talking about those devices. And then I think a big one that affects this group is every summer the state board walks through the governor's budget. And that budget comes to us, it's a presentation, and then I'm going to ask you guys to mute if possible. Unless you can't hear me.
No, we can hear you.
Okay. Let me try that again. So the board walked through the state budget towards the, I believe it was the end of the day on Wednesday. If you want to go back and watch that conversation, it comes as a presentation to the board where we learn about the recommendations dollar-wise in the budget. A big piece of that, of course, is special education. So the excess costs for special education is something that the state board takes up every year. We have a conversation about what do we want to recommend back to the governor that we think, in this case, she should do as far as a budget recommendation. In years past, the board has moved to really get us as close to that 92% of the special education excess costs as possible. We have tried recommending it as an all at once several years ago. We said you should just put in all the money. That did not work. We have asked then over the last several years if we could do a phase-in. And then, of course, last year, the board took a big step back and said, okay, can we get to 80% of the special education excess costs? And so in July, the board will have this conversation again. I have no idea what they're going to recommend, and they will have an opportunity to plug a number into that percentage slot, most likely, that will correlate to a total dollar amount. So if you have opinions, if you want to reach out to your board members, this is where I really want to encourage you guys to be loud and talk about the things that you need and the why. And of course, I am happy to carry that conversation from here back to the board. So as I asked you last time, please weigh in on the devices if you have opinions. This is a really good time to weigh in on the budget. So you can find the entirety of the board meeting online on KSDE Live Media via YouTube. And here in the next week or so, there should also be a summary that comes out on the KSDE website on the board page. And you can read through there and just see what the other items were in the meeting. But I think these are the highlights I wanted to deliver for you all today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Melanie. Any questions for her? Okay. John, I believe you were up with the Kansas School Blind.
Thank you, Dr. Moore. I'll be brief. This School for the Blind update. We're in the middle of ESY, extended school year, so I've got a few photos up here. Thank you, Pat, for pulling those up. We serve about 125 students this summer. We're serving about 125. We have so many students we can't serve them on our campus, so we have taken it on the road. So we do 2 sessions in Wichita, and then we do 1 session at Camp Aldrich, so some of our students from the rural parts of the state can still get that experience without coming to our campus. But you can see some of the activities. We themed it around, obviously, Get Your Kicks World Cup, and even our youngest students got in on the action. They adopted teams and did some activities around the World Cup. But it really is not just fun, it's not camp, it's really about academics and what we call the expanded core curriculum, so orientation, mobility, Braille instruction, social skills, independent living, career tech ed, those sorts of things are all embedded in the program. So this is our last week of that. You can see some of the activities on the left and our new gym on the right. We're having a lot of fun with that. We hire actually a lot of teachers who do not work with us during the school year that come in and learn about the program and then hopefully take some of those skills back with them to their home schools and home communities. You can go ahead to the next one, Pat. One of the treats was getting a chance to go to the English national team soccer practice out at Swope Parkway. The Victory Project is their nonprofit, and they've donated money to our blind soccer pitch on our campus. And because they've been involved with us, they said, come on out and we have a half hour for somebody to do something before the national team takes the field. So they invited us out and we did a little demonstration of blind soccer. And our students went out there, and then when it was over, the players came over, and Harry Kane signed a white cane for one of our students, which was exciting. So it was a great experience, even though it was very hot. Not a bit of shade out at Swope Parkway, but we had a lot of fun, and the general public, about 500 people, got to hear about sports for individuals who are blind. So a lot of fun. You can go to the next one. So just a little bit of data. We do have 2 teams that serve families and students in their home communities. A lot of people think we're just a school in Kansas City, Kansas, and that's it. Actually, most of our teachers and most of our students are served off campus now. This is the Burst to 3 team, serving 349 students at present. I think with 28 different infant toddler networks. We're layered on top of the IT networks. This is a partnership with the Kansas Department of Health and Environment. And so everything is embedded as part of that system, but when they have a student they think might be blind or might have a visual impairment, they call our team. We can do assessments for them. We can do some instruction in the home and work with that team so that parents are connected with the next step along the way. Maybe they need a low vision exam. Maybe they want a referral to an ophthalmologist. Maybe they want to know what to do in the home with their child, and our teachers can help them identify that. The last part was our 3 to 21. It was cut off here, but they're also serving about the 300 students direct service across the state. The direct service is in red, and then the indirect service is attending meetings, things like that, or in blue. And what the counties or the school districts that are in white would have probably their own vision teacher, so they don't require our help. But overall, we're serving about 800 kids across the state every year, and in addition to those that are on our campus. So we're excited about that. KISA, we're part of KISA and high quality instruction in the special schools. Dr. Steele was out last week, I think it was, Joan, came to both School for the Deaf, School for the Blind. We're going to host some of their team again. I just learned, which would be great, to kind of, how do we partner, how do we align with where the state is going on high quality instruction, so we're excited about that. And then the last thing, we're trying to rebuild our old historic carriage house in 1895. I'm a constructivist learner. I believe kids learn by doing. We think we can raise $2 million of possible a $6 million renovation to make that a place where families, kids can say, hey, I want my child to learn skills, real world skills that they can apply when they return home, because they're not going to stay with us forever. We got a partnership with Train Technologies to start studying energy. So what does that look like? What did it look like in 1895? What does it look like today? How do we collect data, do analytics on that? And we'll have an open house in December where we can share some of that work and invite community and parents and legislators to that. So we invite anybody from here. Thank you for letting me share.
Thank you so much, John. So I'm going to introduce Joan Macy, who's taking the position of Luann Barron, who retired, as an ex officio. Let me clarify that, as an ex officio. So introduce you, this is Joan Macy with the Kansas School for the Deaf. Yes, thank you.
We didn't think there were enough changes in the educational system in the state of Kansas, so when our superintendent decided to retire, we decided we're just going to keep the search going, and instead of just replacing it with one person, we're going to replace her with 2 people, which shows you how much work Luann was doing. But the Board of Education asked for myself and Joelle Allen, who is our secondary principal, to be interim co-superintendents. And the nice thing about that is you've got a teammate to kind of play off of. I am hearing, obviously, and Joelle is deaf. And so it's also nice that we're bringing both of those perspectives to the role. We are not the School for the Blind. We are the ones that were in Olathe, and we do the sign language stuff. I don't have the slides because I was on the road working with some school districts this past week, but we do have some similarities with the School for the Blind in that we have our campus program based in Olathe, where we serve about 150 students from throughout the state of Kansas. We serve kindergarten through post-secondary on our campus, but we also have an outreach department that serves the entire state, and through that program, we serve birth to 21, and we serve about 800 students. And we serve not only the students, but we also have programs for families, professional development for schools, and then of course direct services and supports. We do partner with the infant toddler networks, and so we're very happy to have a good relationship with them. And we've been able to build those relationships, so now when those students show up with hearing loss, we're one of the first referrals where they'll contact our staff so we can immediately get in and support those families and walk with them as they're going on that journey. We also have a parent support group called PATHS, and we do try to have events throughout the state of Kansas. So we try to send that stuff out, but if you are interested, please let us know. We do have a newsletter that goes out once a month that'll keep you up to date on all of the things that are happening both on our campus and what we're hosting throughout the state. We currently had an ASL immersion camp. We had a record number. We had 125 families coming to that camp, which is a chance to give the parents, the siblings, aunts and uncles, and everybody a little bit to learn, a chance to learn a little bit about deaf education, language development, literacy development, and then everybody learns how to tell a story by the end of the week, and they get to go home with the book. So kind of promoting that literacy skill. After that, we had our extended school year, which again, we kind of tagged on to the World Cup theme as well, because it's all happening right there in Kansas City. We've had a record number of ESY students. And the nice thing about our ESY is it's not only for students who attend our campus throughout the year, but it's for students who might attend in their home districts, but then they come to us for ESY to get some of that social opportunity and some of that specialized instruction. The biggest thing about the School for the Deaf is we're here to partner with the districts throughout the state and our families, and we really want to try and work and develop that collaborative relationship with all of you guys. So if there's ever a need, please reach out to us and let us know, because we're here to serve you. Thank you.
Thank you, Joan. All right, Anna, there you were. Last ex officio, KNEA, Anna Bradley.
Well, I flew in late yesterday evening from Portland, Oregon, having spent the weekend with 3,500 high school and middle school students who were competing at the National Educators Rising Conference. 32 Kansas students did compete nationally. And, but they were gonna, I left, I had to leave to get back to do this. Their award ceremony was this morning, and so I will hear probably later this afternoon how our results turned out, so that was really exciting. And we are continuing to expand on that program. So if you have schools who are interested, we're actually going to add a regional competition this year. We've had two. One that has been at Mid-America Nazarene for several years, so that one will continue. And then the Wichita Regional is actually moving to Emporia State University. And then we're gonna add one in Southwest Kansas at Garden City. And what that has allowed us to do too is we're also expanding the bilingual competitions. Educators Rising does have competitions that are in Spanish. And so we've had several students compete in those Spanish competitions at both at regional, state, and now national level. So we want to continue expanding that. For the teacher leaders to sign up, that is free, and only students who are competing actually have to pay a small fee. It's like $15 a year to do that. But we're supporting those groups no matter what. And of course that too ties into the Youth Apprentice program that you may have heard about from Shane Carter through the licensure department. And so we've had a group of youth apprentices who've completed in Topeka that are also Ed Rising members. And that's going to grow out even more this year. So please let me know if you're interested in those opportunities. We also have Epic Educators. You still have a chance to register for that. That is July 15th and 16th here in Wichita. Rebecca and Trish are both presenters at that conference. And so we're very excited. Lots of different breakout sessions this year. Missy Testerman, who was a National Teacher of the Year, is going to be our keynote speaker. And then we have about 20 different presenters doing breakouts. So just quite a variety of sessions. And K-8 itself continues to offer professional learning opportunities through micro-credentials, and we have some various other conferences. And also if you have like mentoring support, those kinds of things, just let me know. Rebecca, what am I forgetting?
No, I'm just saying, there's a lot of resources on that site dealing with special ed resources that
Yes.
I do research on, and we write and we create. So as part of the IDEA resource cadre at NEA in DC, which I'll do in a couple weeks.
Yes, absolutely. And I know we have a new stack of micro-credentials specifically focused on AI. So don't hesitate to give me a shout if you have any questions.
Thank you so much, Anna. Any other reports? What's that?
I was going to thank the ex officio members. It's always exciting to hear your reports and what's going on out in the state. It's always a highlight for me, and I really appreciate that you show up and that you provide those. And if you can't show up, you show up online, which, you know, we'll take whatever we can get. So thank you very much for continuing to be engaged and involved with the SEAC.
So before we close, we have something very important. We need to honor and bid our farewells to Bert. 52 years. I heard you say 52 years earlier. As a special ed teacher, leader, and you've been with KSDE since 2018, 2019.
Started when he was 10.
He started when he was 10 years old, to get that on record, yes, very good. It has been an honor to get to know you, to get to serve with you. And the leadership team met, so that was Lena, Lindsay, Rebecca, and I, and met with Joyce to talk about what could we do. We thought about a cake, but let's be honest, we've all had plenty of cake, and I believe we have probably cake or something delicious and sweet coming. So instead, what we did is we pulled together the list of former SEAC members and ex officio members and reached out to them and asked for them to submit something, a memory, something related to Bert that they would like to write about. And we put together a book that is called Planting Seeds, The Legacy of Bert Moore in Kansas Special Education. Now the garden reference is because I believe we have all heard him say at one point or another that that's one of his primary goals. So Bert, we adore you, we love you. I'm going to let you have some time with this, and then I will send a version of this to Joyce to send out, because I have to tell you, I'm impressed. I was brought to tears by some of the things that you have written. So thank you to all of you who submitted. There's a few that I'm going to send along that didn't quite make it in time to get the book, but they are heartfelt as well. So Bert, we love you. We are going to miss you. You've got big shoes to fill, strong shoulder to stand on as we move forward, but you have been momentum to us. I can't talk, I'm so excited, I'm stirred up. Thank you, Bert. Do you have any last words of wisdom? The main thing is the main thing?
I don't know about wisdom, but stick around for my final opportunity on Wednesday. If you're here for the conference, I have something planned for all of you. But I just want to thank you. I've had 15 years to serve on SEAC. I had 8 years back in the 90s and early 2000s where I served as chair, and really appreciated that opportunity. Started with Alexa. She invited me to the first meeting. I don't know why really, but she did. And I come in and I sit down and I'm listening to the conversation. It was quite a rowdy group back then, I'll be honest. And all of a sudden she turns to me and she says, now Bert is here and he's going to tell us how to reduce the paperwork. She never set me up for that. So I just talked about what we've done locally to write our own IEP, which was 7 pages, not 50, and talked about how we tried to make sure we kept everything the main thing. And anyway, it started there, and then I ended up working with that group, and they were really hardworking. And we used to do the annual report at the last meeting. So you all would have been telling us what needed to go in that report at the last meeting, and I found that to be, I'm going to be honest, a real waste of time. And so I recommended that the secretary keep track at each meeting, and then that secretary could plug it in, and then we could approve it at the last meeting. And so that was probably my biggest claim to fame. But thank you all for serving. It's all about service. It was my service, and I'm glad to do it. I think I was led down this path from a very young age. Trying to be as positive as I can be, to promote student learning, to promote staff skill sets so that staff could have what they needed to be able to teach the students, because I found that a lot of them wanted to do a good job, but they had no idea. Because when you individualize and you have a caseload of 20 students, how do you spend time individualizing? So there's a lot of accountability. That's where I ended up with so many paras, because the paras had to be in those classrooms, the teacher had to be in the resource room. You can't do both at the same time. So I'm just saying, you all have your targets for this year, and you have your meeting set up, and I'll expect to see great things come out of this group. That's all I can say. And just keep the momentum going and keep the main thing the main thing.
Thank you so much, Kurt. You've got the next meeting date posted, September 24th. Hope to see you all there, the Docking State Building. And we are going to adjourn a wee bit early. Oh, Lena is right beside me making a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second for that? Autumn has seconded that. All in favor? Aye. Indicate by second. Lunch will be across the hall. Sorry, those of you who are not with us. But for those of you in this room, lunch will be across the hall at 12, which gives you a little bit of time to kind of take a little bit of a break, and we'll see you across the hall soon. Thank you very much.